Okay, perfect.
Welcome to the Wednesday night live stream. Tonight we have Be the Fountain Brandy and Reefing with O. Now today we figured it'd be fun to talk about reefing disasters because there was a recent one that happened among us. How's it going today?
Weird. Hey, how you doing?
I
Wonderful,
noticed
thank
the tank
you.
behind you looks a little different.
Yeah, so something's different.
What is the tank behind me looks different? Oh, there's a mess going. Oh, let me hide. Let me position myself.
There is no evidence.
That's part of the conversation, right?
Yeah, it's true. All right.
Yeah.
Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
Well, yeah, it was a very eventful weekend. All right, so let me start by saying what happened and what I think went wrong. Well, I know what went wrong. So, I had a Red Sea Reefer 350.
Yep.
And this weekend, I secured the weekend before I secured a beautiful tank. It was 48 inches long by 30 inches deep by 20 inches high, made by a local tank builder here called Reefer Man, who's been building tanks for people in New York City for a while. So I did ask around him, did ask about him. He had a good rep, spoke to him, good guy. Went to his house, disassembled the tank. He had the tank cleaned up, took the stand down. The stand is 100% birch, like an inch thick. Yes.
That sounds pretty.
We eventually had to lift it up over the balcony.
Wait,
so at one point,
so this was a used tank?
it was a used tank.
For some reason, I thought you had a custom-made tank done.
It's custom by
Used
him,
custom.
but no, not
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
That makes me
so
feel a
it-
little bit better about the picture I've seen.
I was picking the tank up a 1 block from where Christian lived. So I called Christian. I was like, "Do you live here?" So Christian even came before he went to work.
So where's
And
Christian
helped
work? Because I don't know that everybody watching knows Christian.
Christian
who's
used
Christian?
to work in Manhattan Aquariums, and he now works at the aquarium shop in Long Island, formerly the Aquarium Village. So he
Okay.
works in a local fish store.
Good friend of ours.
Yes. Took the stand down the stairs. Eventually, at one point, we lifted it like maybe 10 feet into the air to get it over a balcony, and the tank and the stand, by the way. Got it into the truck. Now, unfortunately for me, Christian and my other friend, for those of you locally, his name is Arnaldo. The people who knew anything about moving tanks had to go. My friend was having construction. Christian had to go to work. Christian lives the next town over from the guy who had construction happening at his house. So he said, "Christian, I'll give you a ride." But I thought we had the worst of it done. We had already lifted the tank 10 feet in the air, gotten it over a balcony, took it home. And when we were unloading it from the truck and putting it on the dolly tipped a little bit and zoom.
Oh.
I know. Yep.
So, oof.
Go ahead. You had questions?
So brand new tank. Well, new to you tank. So it was coming slid off the dolly, and that's what happened to it. Just for the record,
Yes.
that's the thumbnail. Was the side of this tank?
No, that's not the tank. Actually, that's a different thing.
Oh, you have a different one.
Yes.
Never mind. I take it back.
If it was that wasn't the disaster. So I had already sold the Red Sea tank, by the way. And another thing is my livestock. I did not expect. See, I only expected my livestock to be in holding tanks for a few hours, not days. So did not know what to do. Scrambled to get a new tank. So Saturday, went and got a Petco 75-gallon tank because I tried to. It seemed like a good deal. There's $1 per gallon sale, $125.
I was going to say, were they doing $1 per gallon at least?
Yes.
Nice.
So I thought the tank that I had, it was Peninsula style, and it had an overflow box. So I said, "Hey, let me drill the 75-gallon from Petco and put the overflow box."
No.
It was tempered. The sides were tempered. That's the thumbnail you have.
Dude, 2 tanks broke over the weekend?
Yes, I was trying to drill the other one and it was tempered.
Oh, no,
Um,
man.
So y'all, just so you know, O just sent us pictures and wouldn't tell us what happened. And that's why Deb
Dang.
decided to do this topic so that O could tell us what happened. So this is
it-
literally the first time we're hearing this.
I thought you drilled the tank that you got and broke. I didn't realize two different
I thought
tanks.
that too.
Dude.
I thought one, I
Dang.
thought you bought a brand new or had ordered a brand new custom tank. So in my head, I was like, why wasn't it already drilled? And two, I'm like, did they mess up and give you a tempered, non-drilled? Like, I was so confused.
Dang.
Man, there were times, and thank you to Kels and Greg and my wife for talking me down from the edge. Because at one point I was calling Christian and people to like, hey, come get whatever livestock's left. Like, I'm done. My wife is like, you can't do that. Greg is like, I know what you feel. Like, this is why people leave the hobby when stuff happens. So thank you for them for talking me down from the ledge. But in the end, I will fill in some details later. I went back to Petco and they had a 60 breeder, which is a 40 breeder, but except it's a foot longer. It's 48 inches. So that's kind of what you see behind me is the rough setup of a 60 breeder and whatever livestock. By the way, most of my fish died. I only have like 4 fish left. My
Dang.
precious, precious gem tang.
How did they die?
I put them in hold. So let me back up and say, if I expected my fish to be in tanks for 2 or 3 days, I would have done a completely different setup. I just took the rocks out, put them in a holding tank, put the snails, livestock, everything, urchins in like containers, rubber bin containers. I think my plan was to, you saw the Carib Sea rock I was showing you guys last week. I was planning on putting all new rock in with some media I had cycled and putting the fish back and cutting the corals off the rocks. But I think putting rocks, taking them out of an established tank, putting them in small holding containers. Of course, I had flow and I had heat, but I think the stress of that just caused whatever chain reaction because then bristleworms died. And then those little starfish things you have died.
That's Trina. Dang.
And then, first of all, I didn't realize I had about 100 snails, and they also died. And you're muted, Brandy.
Sorry, I muted myself when my son came in earlier. I've been talking. I've been reacting this whole time. What caused the whole die off the first?
I have no idea. I think they just weren't. I think so. The biggest holding container I had was 27 gallons. I don't think. I think if I would expected to hold my livestock over the course of days, I probably would have had bigger holding containers, or I would have given my stuff away and kept little cuttings. I don't think. I think my prep would have been different.
Yeah.
I
More
probably
water
would have
volume.
gone and get a 75-gallon tank. Yeah, I had flow, MP10s, MP40s, Neros, and all the tanks would flow. But yeah, Tracy said losing the livestock is worse than the tanks. Yes,
Yeah.
I had a gem tang, and I've told the story about the gem tang. I had it for Father's Day. Got it at Petco when gem tangs were expensive, and my wife bought it for me. So some of the fish had a lot of stories behind them that even some of the corals, like some of the corals had good stories behind them where coworkers who I don't even work with anymore bought me a coral and I still have it. Got things, hey, like Reef Keeper, I know he's there. He had shipped me a box of stuff that he kept alive, including that Space Invader. So I have a clipping of the Space Invader. So a lot of the corals I had, you know, a lot of them I bought, but a lot of them I got from people, and they had a story behind them. So that was sad. I know Dupree's in the chat. He gave me like a thing of Red Planet. Some of the corals were not, if you look at it, they weren't name brand, but they had personal stories. There was a chalice I got from Lynn Reef Nerd, who I know you guys have seen Lynn Reef Nerd all around. She gave me I bought a chalice from her for a good price years ago, and it took a while before it started growing, but once that thing started growing, it was so colorful. It was the brightest green that you've ever seen. So, like a lot of the livestock I lost, they had Yeah. Hydrogen sulfide from stirrup sand. Nope, no sand. It was bare bottom tank. So I took yeah. So I also saw Carlos messages. Like I said, if I thought they were been in tanks for more than a day, I think I would have done a completely different thing.
Mhm.
So right now I have a 60 breeder. Um, not going to drill it. Not going to take that risk anymore. So I've ordered a bunch of hang on the back stuff. So I'm gonna do like a hang on the back, not a hang on the back, but an internal like Tunzi skimmer. I
Yep.
called up Roger from Tunzi. Brandy, you're muted again. I
I
called up
not
Roger.
myself that time. I don't know what's happening. Dev must be muting me.
Nope.
So is that going to be your tank now?
No, so I have
Okay.
the stand.
For now.
I have the stand, and I really like the stand. It needs some refinishing, but like I said, it's birch. It comes with a sump. It's really nice. So I'm trying to order a tank from someone to fit, which is going to be 48 by 30 by 20. So I am
That's a
trying
nice
to.
dimension.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be beautiful. The stand it's kind of low, but there was something when I was looking over, because as tall as I am, when I'm next to the tank, it's going to be looking down. But I thought, geez, that's going to be. So when I'm sitting here in my work spot, I'd be looking at it like a regular tank. But when I'm close to the tank, it would be top down. And I was like, shoot,
Heck yes.
this is going to be an awesome view, like
Heck
top
yes.
down. Oh,
Heck yes.
So it's a low stand, but yeah. So I have the stand. I'm going to be refinishing it. And refinishing it and getting a tank. One other thing is, I cannot believe, Dev, how much crap I had on the tank. Like,
I believe it.
literally had Neros behind the tank. I was like, where did this Nero come from? Like, I had so many magnets. Like, I think when I finished, I had a big Ziploc bag filled with magnets. Like, I don't know where these magnets.
You walk by something metal, you're just like,
yeah, I don't know. Like, I had. Oh, my son just made me coffee. Thank you. So
did you see that one? Sorry, one quick thing in the chat. Stories Reef. Heyo, I live in Astoria, Queens. Come by. Astoria. Sorry, I didn't know how to say it. Come by when you want to add some corals to hook you up, man.
Ooh, that is. I know. Is that the Stories Reef that did a video with Andrew Sandler the other day? I know. I don't know you personally, but I know of you.
Mm-hmm.
He has good stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, I had too much crap on the tank. Too much crap. I had 2 Vectras. I had 2 Neros behind the tank that I guess fell, and I just didn't bother to pick them up. I have, like one of
There's
those
a reason why I call you the equipment man. Like,
those travel suitcases? I have a travel suitcase, the little mini suitcases that you use as carry-on. That is just cables for everything I have, just power cables. 4 MP40s. I think I just had so much
how
junk
big was
on the
your
tank. 75 gallons, Red Sea 350.
I've only got 2 MP40s on my 140-gallon Peninsula. And the max spec that I got from you. So.
If I think I had learning from this is I am not going to, like, you name it, it was on the tank, like literally, like 4 auto feeders. And yeah.
So 4 auto feeders, holy smokes. You're like a different particle size for everybody.
They weren't, like I said, not necessarily they were running.
Oh, they fell behind the tank. I might
have had an auto feeder or 2 that fell behind the tank, and I just didn't know or couldn't find it, and I ended up getting another one.
I'm not gonna lie, it is kind of funny, but I feel super bad because that is a rough weekend.
It's only funny because we know he's going to come back better.
Yes, he will.
So it's a weird setup because it's a 30-inch tank, 30-inch stand, and then I have a tank that's only 18 inches wide. So I put it like in the middle a little bit. So there's like
You
a
got a
little
shelf.
thing in front. Yeah. And also in the back is where I put like a lot of the junk, the equipment, not junk, but the equipment. Like the Alcatronic, some of the Apex stuff, it's all a lot of the hydro stuff is behind the tank. So but I need, if anybody in New York knows a tank builder who before August can build me a 48 by 30-inch tank, even if it's braced or rimless, please hit me up.
Gold Slinger,
Yeah.
holy smokes. Thank you.
I know.
This needs to go to the Ode Needs to Recover Fund.
Yeah.
We got to get you some tank fundage. Why don't you ask the same person that built that original tank that you said you looked into and was a good tank builder? Why not just reach out to them and be like, hey, I bought this used tank and bad things happened. Can you make the same dimensions?
I bought it from the builder.
Oh, well.
But he no longer builds tanks.
Ah.
He sent me, I'm trying to find my thing. There's like hilarious communication. He's like, I'm into motorcycles now, and he doesn't have the space to build a tank anymore. His bench is all motorcycle gear. So yeah, that was my first thing. It was like, hey, can you build me a tank?
Gotcha.
Yeah, there was even one of my neighbors who was like, I guess he deals in glass. He was like, this is good glass. So he cut the, he's like, this is Starfire.
Wait.
Nice.
If your neighbor buddy has a glass shop or glass, whatever, why don't you get him just to make you a new one panel and then No?
I'm not no, it's not one panel. It fell in the corner. But I think what he said, he can cut the panels and use them. But I don't know about you, but I am not risking. I live in an apartment building. Even if I lived in my own house, I'm not taking that risk for a tank.
Fair.
So he's like, this is good glass. And within a few minutes, he took the tank apart and he was like, I'm going to cut off the edges and use it for something. Because he's like, this is good glass. Like, this is not cheap glass. So
you're like, nope, it wasn't. Dang.
Yeah.
That is a rough weekend. I feel bad, but I'm happy that you were talked off the ledge and that you're going to stick with it.
Yeah, shout out to Greg for, because believe me, I was calling Christian, I was calling Mike, I was calling everyone I knew. I was like, do you need this? Do you need this? Do you want to come get this? I was ready to quit.
Goldsinger just gave us 2 super chats.
Oh, some of this is being donated to your tank fund some way, somehow.
So I don't have a tank fund, and thank you. But if you're
well,
local
now
and you have,
do.
if you're no, I'm fine with the tank fund. But if anybody has coral, that I will
need to replenish.
Yes, I do. I will, and I'm not. So again, think. The story I just told you about people giving me coral. I think I would rather get from people like Carlos. Carlos gave me some stuff years ago, and the stuff that I had, like, I think most of the stuff I had a personal story, and that's what I think I want my tanks to be going forward. It should be corals from people.
It's
almost everything I had, someone gave me. Like, I bought a ton of stuff, yes, but even the stuff I bought, it was like Carlos from Worldwide Corals recommended it. So I was like, hey, Carlos said this was a good piece. So everything, even the ones I bought, they had a personal story to them. I think that's the direction I want to go going forward.
That's a really fun way to do it. It's cool to basically have a tank full of memories in a way, right? You're like, oh, I got this at this show with these people, and no, that was that from that buddy. Like, I think that's a really cool way long term how you look at it. It's like, oh, there's like good memories, right?
I think that's one of the reasons why I'm really slow to fill things up. I've said this before, like, I want to feel a certain way when I see a coral, and if I don't feel that certain way, I don't want it. So I have not just bought a bunch of corals that I could have, and it is driving my husband insane. He's like, you need more coral. But I'm like, I've made that mistake with my smaller tanks, and then before I knew it, they were so full I couldn't put anything else in it. So
Yep.
I watched a video from Jake Adams recently called the Kitchen Sink Reef Tank. And I was so inspired by that, where he didn't have a lot of coral in it, but it was a lot of big, healthy colonies.
Mm-hmm.
And he only had 2 pumps on it that were sweeping the back. And that's how I kind of set up this tank in haste, where nothing is on the back wall and just 2 MP40s sweep in the back. And I think that's the direction I'm going to go.
Now, here is a question, because historically you are a gear junkie to the nth degree, and you try and change out every piece. Okay.
Oh, no.
You're just talking about the simple aspect. Okay.
Oh, no. Yeah, simple to me, it means, like a controller. Simple means no ozone, maybe. No ozone this time.
It's the only thing it means.
No. Maybe means no.
Oh, when you first said kitchen sink, I thought it was that you put everything in it, like.
Oh no,
that's a take.
And I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense that would inspire you. Like, I'm surprised you didn't inspire him on that video, but I guess that's different.
Yeah. So simple's gonna mean less pumps.
Mm-hmm.
Hey Brandy, by the way, if you're interested in another gyre, got another one, the bigger one, because I was running the bigger one. JCS Reefing says, I feel like O has tried every piece of gear out there.
He has.
I think it's easier to say what light I haven't used. So what light do you guys want to learn about? I mean, I had a Kessel. I didn't even realize I had a Kessel 360. I also had a Hydra somewhere. I also had a Kessel 500X. Didn't know.
I've not tried any of these.
I don't know if I'm going to go with the Radion Blue this time, or maybe
your stack
Pro.
of stuff behind you that is
I
hidden
do
from
have
you.
those cool little diffusers.
And I thought I was bad. I got nothing on no.
Oh, guess what I discovered?
Nothing.
Because recently I had stopped using Apex gear, but it turns out it's a brand new dose and DDR somewhere hanging around here, still in the plastic. So, hey,
I say this all the time when, I was telling Josh about having O help him with the scrubbers.
Are you starting a small fish store?
I might.
I'm like, O has tried everything. There is not a piece of equipment that, if I have a question about equipment, O's the first person I call.
Okay, you know what? We're going to go back to this about what you're going to do on the next tank, because you've tried a lot of things. First, just on the disaster front.
Oh yeah, that's the topic.
Just because I saw this photo on my desk. So yeah, we have a topic. So my second or third tank was a 24-gallon Innovative Marine Fusion tank. It had I think it was a 3-foot tank with a bent glass corners.
It was 25 gallon?
I think so, something like that.
And it was 3 feet? Was it really narrow?
Kinda.
Okay.
So it was a super cool tank. And so I had a little 12-gallon tank, and I think I upgraded to a 16-gallon and a 24-gallon. You keep doing these little baby upgrades, which really you should just do a big one. But it's I kept doing these little baby upgrades. So I'm at the 24-gallon tank. It was bent glass tank, super cool. It was up and running for a couple months. Everything's good and happy. And I'm out one day, and I come home with the wife. And at the time, our dog was a puppy. Oh my gosh, this was probably 6-7 years ago. So he's a puppy in his crate beside the tank. And literally we came in, we set the groceries on the counter, and there's this big crack. And we're like, what the? We look over, there's a sheet of water just dousing the puppy in salt water. So he's freaking out. And then my wife's freaking out because the puppy's freaking out. I'm freaking out because my tank's spewing out water. So needless to say, I don't even know how, but I somehow found duct tape. I'm she's ripping it, trying to tape up the crack. So it slowed it down. I didn't stop it, but it slowed it down. And then I'm literally finding bins and laundry bins and buckets and everything else. And just for the people in the chat, this is one of the photos I found from that. So I was draining my water that I could save into the buckets to put the fish and the coral and the rocks and stuff. So they were living in laundry bins and 5-gallon buckets and all the stuff. So that was super chaotic. And then I think I had a couple more photos of it. So that's.
How long ago was this?
What was that? Sorry.
How long ago was this?
The dog was a puppy, so I'm gonna guess 7-ish years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can see, if you can see the YouTube, there's a big crack that went from the very top of the tank and spiraled around the
Is that
corner
tape?
all the way down.
Is that tape on the tank?
Yes, that is duct tape. That was my savior, to slow it down at least, so I can like catch more water and save more fish and stuff. So that sucked. Like this was my worst tank breaking experience.
Do you
And then,
know what caused the crack?
I think it was just stress. Like my theory was when they bent the glass, it was probably not like a perfect 90 and there was a bit of a tension on it, and just over time.
I was expecting, because you brought the puppy up immediately, that the puppy had like jumped up and hit it or something.
No,
so it just randomly.
Oh yeah, it was just part of the story. His little like cage pen thing was right beside the tank, so it cracked, and he was just getting like sheeted with water, and he started freaking out.
So it just so happened y'all had just come in, and it just randomly cracked.
Literally like 2 minutes, not even. Like we sat the groceries on the counter, and this big bang. We're like, what the? And the puppy started
Thank
freaking
God
out.
y'all were home.
Yep. So
You know,
thankfully,
that reminds me.
Yeah.
Wow, that is interesting. One time I used. You remember when we all used to use those overflow boxes?
yeah.
The hang-on overflow boxes to get water down to the sump. I had one, and I guess a snail got in the tube.
Oof.
And it just so happened my wife walked in. She's just heard water. So it clogged up, but it just happened at the right time where someone was just walking by. So we were able to like shut that off quickly. But
Lucky.
can you imagine if that
Yep.
happened when you weren't home? Like it would have been, you'd have to redo the house probably.
Oh yeah. Oh, there's more good stuff coming. Well, other source. So this is all still Devin's early days of reefing. So thankfully, someone locally lent me whatever this was, a little 3-foot tank. So that lived on my floor for like a month or two until I eventually got a new warranty tank, which wasn't bent glass. It was a nice square version of it. So that was good. And that was a good tank after that. But another, on the disaster front, another good one, well, not good, but lesson learned, is I used to fill up like the brute cans with RODI. And it was like in my little furnace room. And I would just like I'd leave the light on as a reminder for me to turn it off. And one time, we're going to bed, someone else shut off the light. So I didn't even think about it. You wake up in the morning, it's like, you're just like, So there has been multiple lessons of RODI overflowing that I've learned over the years. So a big lesson, everybody, invest in float valves. And if you want to step it up, optical sensors with solenoids as well as float valves, but definitely always have something on for your RDI, because that is going to keep on flowing until you notice it.
We're not saving the stream, right? We're not saving this. This is going to be deleted after, but
Nah, it's
yeah.
No, it's not going to be deleted.
There's no deleting.
I
was like, excuse.
It's on YouTube forever. Yeah.
I'm on the 3rd floor, and I've had where my neighbor on the 1st floor had a flood because I set up an Alexa timer and my kid stopped the timer and didn't tell me. So, or one of those things where you're making water at night and you know that moment where you wake up at like 3 a.m. and like, shoot, I fell asleep at 11 and I was filling a bucket.
Woo.
See, this is why before I had float valves on my RDI containers, I did it in the bathtub. So
Yes,
when
wise.
they overflowed, which happened regularly, it went down a drain.
Yep.
Now I have much bigger in the garage, and there's float valves.
Yep.
Yeah, you're smarter than Dev and I think. Because it took me a while to learn my lesson. The one of those, or my kids were running by and they just kicked the thing out the bucket and you didn't know.
So the lesson is multiple levels of redundancy of anything that automatically refills water. Could you ask if you would consider hiring a mover after this to move it to future tank?
So
because if they break it, they pay for it.
You know what? True, but I think the people who were there for the last mile to take it and bring it were all competent humans, but I don't think anyone there who had moved a tank before. So my friend Arnaldo and Christian, by the way, when they were there, I was nervous. I was like, shoot, we got to take this down, take it over the balcony, take it downstairs. those two were calm. And, my friend, I was like, dude, why are you so calm? He's like, oh, I've done this many times. We'll get it out. I already see how we're going to get it out. And Christian wasn't sweating. Well, Christian doesn't sweat, but he wasn't sweating. So I think for that last mile.
We've seen him have a life-threatening allergic reaction, and there was no.
Yeah,
he's like,
I
I
just
need to go to the emergency room because I might die.
Yeah, I'll be back in a bit, guys.
So I think so. Yes, Dev. I think that whoever asked the question, I think I would.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the people who were doing the last mile, we had no experience. And my friend said, I remember he was telling me, and I was like, that's stupid. He's like, when you're taking the tank off, take the tank, put it on the dollies, take the stand first, put it on the dollies, and then put the tank on the dolly and then push it upstairs. Because we did measure my door, and I know that my door was wide enough because my door in my apartment is like 34 inches wide. So it was tall enough to like push everything in. So I just think for that last mile, it's 100-mile race. And for that last 20 miles, I think it was the novices that were moving. Because I think somebody would have been there like, no, man, don't do that.
Yeah.
So that's my thing. I think the people who were doing not that we were weak or anything or we didn't know, we just didn't have experience moving any tanks before. That was my first time moving a tank.
You don't know sometimes.
Yeah. So
dang. Oh, so Phil just posted a link in the chat. I just pulled it up for fun. It is a video of a tank exploding. Someone drilling a tank full of water. So
that's Mike. We know who that is. I think we know who that is. Yeah. And I actually remember that video. That's why I said, I'm not drilling any more tanks. Let me just hang on back until I can get a correct tank build.
Yeah.
He's not even using water on it, is he?
Well, it's full of water. But yeah, I know he wasn't using water.
I think it's because it was tempered. Now, when I asked everyone, people couldn't believe that the sides of like a Petco 75-gallon tank were tempered because even Greg's and the guy at the fish store I called, they were like, why were you drilling the bottom? I said, no, I was drilling the side. So they didn't realize that Petco was tempering, not Petco, but Aquarium was tempering the sides of.
Actually dug into this before because my buddy Dylan, his original PetSmart, Petco, whatever tank, same thing, drilling in, it broke. So he ended up doing a custom tank, which looked 100 times better. So it was like a blessing in disguise. But aside from that, it was same thing. Apparently, he reached out to them, and it's like random if they do or they don't. They just use whatever glass is plentiful at the time. So it's like sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. So there was no standard.
So I did look the information.
Huh?
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I drilled my 60-gallon tank like a long time ago. And everybody kept telling me it was going to be tempered. And I found the same information out was that it's just like random, whatever glass was cheaper that day is what they built it with. And so I just looked with the glasses and the phone. I did all the tests that they they say, and it wasn't tempered. So it was not a problem.
So if you do ever want to check polarized glasses and a cell phone, and you look to see if the screen goes black or if it changes through the glass type of thing, and then you could check that way.
And always check because all the research I did tells me a lot of different companies just do random tempered or not tempered, especially when they're not drilled already because they're made essentially for a freshwater tank where drilling doesn't happen, so it doesn't really matter if it's tempered or not.
Yep.
Interesting. I should have done that. But at this point now, I think I'm content with. My energy is going to be placed into getting sorting a custom tank to fit on the stand because, like I said, the stand is birch. It does need some sanding and finishing, but I am in love with the dimensions. Oh, the dimensions, Brandy, the dimensions I love. And then the stand is, I think even the guy said when he was drilling the wood to like put holes through to run the cables through, he had to get like a special extended drill bit, like just a regular like Ace Hardware wood drill like didn't do the job. So I love the stand, by the way. I love the stand. So I'm gonna sand it over time, refinish it. But I am going to. I've researched and called. Waiting. I'm gonna get a quote from whoever Reef Bum uses in New Jersey to build his tanks. But yeah.
Nice. You'll like the shallow one. It sounds like a similar thing because like this sitting on my chair, I see the side view, but standing up, you get the top down view.
Yeah. Do you like clams? Like Brandy, I still have a couple of clams that John gave me, so I'm really happy about that. But even clams, like sometimes I realize that looking at a clam from top down versus to the side, the coloration can be so different. Like looking to me, a Montipora Capricornus colony from the front is not that interesting. But a fully healthy Montipora, maybe like a langside cap from the top down, man, that thing is beautiful.
Yeah. Clams are amazing for top downs.
Yeah.
I'm about to do a bunch of clams for a 1 gallon Elos challenge that we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the
I was
tiny
talking to
tank?
John today, huh?
The tiny tanks?
Hey,
Yeah.
does Elos do custom?
Yeah.
Ooh, you're my next call. Francois, my next call. When I got some big tanks made recently, they were delays because the glass factory broke several glass panels drilling my holes. Ooh.
10 by 4 day.
So even if the experts can break,
Yeah.
that's crazy. I guess I got lucky that I was able to successfully drill 3 holes.
Yeah.
The one time I tried, the one and only.
Yeah, I guess there's one time I broke it when I was learning. Then after that, not just like test glass, just like scrap stuff I was doing in like jars and random stuff. But then after that was pretty good. Basically, if you are drilling glass,
I never thought to try with a jar as a practice. That's a good tip.
It definitely helps, right? Just whatever you got.
Yeah.
But use water to keep it cool and rinse all the little particles out. I usually, like last time when I did my big vivarium, I literally had it in the sink with like the hose running on it, drilling into it over the sink. But go slow, use water, don't apply pressure, just basically let the bits slowly grind it and do the work. And not tempered.
Yeah.
Yeah. Coast to Coast Aquariums, they're on my list. So yes, I am going to hit them up. Yeah, I think I'm going to get the exact same dimensions of the tank, like overflow box on the left, 48 by 30. I love those dimensions. I'm in love with those dimensions. And maybe get 20. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to go higher than 20 inches or 22 inches high.
That's what I've said. If I do a custom tank, the 24 inches comes like to here to me. So like, and I have to change shirts and wash off my deodorant in order to get to the bottom of the tank, which is a nightmare.
If you are doing that, I would advise stand on the floor, measure your armpit, and make that the max height. That way you're not like, it'll make your life easier.
That's 100%. If I ever do a custom tank, it's going to stop here, maybe even lower, because I end up not fixing things like aptasia on the bottom, or if a coral falls off, because it's such a endeavor to be able to get down to the bottom of the tank without, like, I don't know, maybe deodorant doesn't matter, but I feel like that's not a good thing that I want to go into a tank.
That's to be avoided, I'm sure.
I guess I could test it out, spray some in.
Why are my coral dying? Yeah.
That looks really. So one of the things I'm going to do also is I'm going to use the tank mounts now, because obviously the ceiling was drilled for a different tank in a different location, so they are way off. And until I get the new tank and know the final location, I ordered a bunch of Ecotech mounts to use. And another thing is,
does that mean you're going with radions on the tank if you bought Ecotech mounts?
Well, I have enough. Well, what else would I use?
Just check in. You had like 18 lights behind you.
So my only thing is, am I going to use the Yeah, it's going to be Radiant. Absolutely.
Okay.
And with the G6, I had 4 blues,
Mm-hmm.
which I was trying to decide, well, 4 blues, but I think with the G6, maybe you could get away with 3.
You could. I currently have 2 G6 30s on my 6-foot tank, and I
No, you
feel
don't.
like
From
I
Tila?
could do it with just the 2 lights.
You have G6s.
Really?
I mean, I personally I would prefer to do 3. Well, it's not mounted perfectly because I just like used that little string and like hung them off my existing lights. But yeah, so I got them spread out, and like you could do 3 to 4 foot spread with one. So it's the Impression is pretty impressive. Like they have more spread than the G5, which is pretty crazy.
They sent me 3 Gen 6 XR15s.
You have Gen 6s? Am I the only one?
I thought I told you, Oh. I think I did tell you. I think you missed it when you're with the tank breaking. Probably just ignored us.
Right now. I'm sending an email right now to you know who.
You're funny.
So
Yeah, just you.
salt in the wound, huh?
Oh, I thought I had turned my camera off. Sorry.
It's okay. I dropped those tears. Yeah. But anyways, quick Cole's notes. The spread on them is awesome. Definitely like that. As I just recorded a video on it today, so it's all fresh in my mind. But I was doing lots of experimenting, trying to compare the blue and the Pro and the 5 and the 6 and whatnot.
You were smart. I didn't realize they were sending me Gen 6s for the record. I thought that they were, you know how I've been talking forever about wanting to do XR15s in between my XR30s?
Mm-hmm.
I thought they were doing that they were just being nice and saying, all right, we'll do that for you since you keep talking about it and I'm slow to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were Gen 6s. I was like, what?
Yep. So yeah, it's fun. Do they have diffusers for the 6s? Yep. The exact same diffusers as the 5. The Gen 5 and Gen 6 physically look identical. Like all the accessories, everything is the same. Side by side, you probably wouldn't even notice a difference. The only difference is the LED layout and the diodes they used, and then the lenses are a different shape of the LED lenses than the diffuser, so they somehow figured out some black magic to get even more spread out of it.
Well, they changed the lens. So the actual lens used to stop at 110 degrees. I think it was like 110.6 or 111.6. And now it stops, like it's just a bigger lens. So it's 129 degrees now.
I don't know. It's a lot though, but
hey,
yes.
Brandy, are you gonna let me know when you're making that visit? I would absolutely love to tag along.
If I'm allowed to, then yeah.
Well, you can ask. You can ask. I don't want to be anywhere, but you can ask. And
you know, I know everybody keeps talking about like this whole thing about the Gen 5.
It makes me laugh. Okay, Phil.
Can I say I get so tired of the light conversations and the light arguments. Like I love, like I can talk all day about reef tanks, but because people get so upset about lights, it drives me insane. I was like, I don't want to hear anything else about lights. Lights are such a emotional decision. There isn't a best one. They all grow coral. Like what you should do is pick the one that you like the best and go with it. And like if you have Gen 5s and you're happy with Gen 5s, they didn't suddenly become obsolete. Like keep your Gen 5s.
my friend.
They stopped working as well because I know there's something else out there.
My friend Paul is so upset. It's like he is so upset. He has Gen 5s and he's like, they only want money. I'm like, yeah, they're a company. Like, I'm like,
that's how business works.
That's they have to make money to keep paying their employees.
I'm like your lights aren't working any less, better, or worse than they were yesterday. He's like, yeah, but I was like, So I'll ask the question. I was like, okay, if they have upgrades that they think they need to push to their customers, do you want them to not do it to make you feel better? Like, I don't get it. I don't know if
Carlos said he still has the Gen 4s. I have a Gen 4 XR15. I love the color on the Gen 4. Like, if
Awesome
I
lights.
had already, yeah, if I had already had Gen 4s for the tank I have downstairs, I would have kept Gen 4s on that tank downstairs. But it was a brand new tank, and I didn't. So I got Gen 5s, and my plan has been to put XR15s in between, and I never got around to it. So the Gen 6s came out. So, and that's the customers that should be doing that. If you want to upgrade to your light for whatever reason already.
All right. Tank Disaster has transformed to lighting streams.
No. So one last thing about this. Look at Greg. Greg has Gen 4s over his tank, and Greg has had Gen 5 sitting brand new in the box there for so long that the light has even upgraded. Is Greg's tank doing any worse? And Dev is right about lights being an emotional decision. It's funny that
me.
It was.
Oh, that was you.
He keeps mixing stuff constantly. It's fine.
Ultimately, I choose Ecotech because of the other things, not necessarily because of the light. Because they're in Pennsylvania. They are so close to New York. When you ship them stuff, I get it repaired and back to me within a day, right? That's one of the reasons. Support is awesome. So I am never going to push, because I've made this mistake before where I'm like, hey.
I just got the spotlight.
I did. That's the problem of cheap Amazon lights. Sometimes they have a mind of their own.
I'll never say, hey, they fix stuff for me for free. I'm never going to say that but there's been a lot of times where it happened last year where, you zip tie your cables together. And when I was cutting the zip tie, I cut through one of the cords. I opened the ticket, sent it to Ecotech. They took care of it without necessarily charging me. So, it's just to support ultimately I go with Ecotech because of all the other stuff, not necessarily because of the light. And I think that's something that doesn't get said enough, because you can pick up the phone and call somebody. And like, there's been times when I have issues with Mobius, and hey, Mobius is not where I would like it to be, but you pick up the phone and you call somebody, and Cade answers the phone. He's like, hey, and I just saw Cade at the show a few months ago. And he's like, hey, can I help you? And he'll walk me through, press this, do this, do this. So that's ultimately why I go with Ecotech over, because support. I'm paying premium. I don't got time to be opening lights and making changes. I want to send it to somebody.
The pure reason why I went with Ecotech is because I liked the way it looked.
Okay.
Like, I like that color. That whenever I bought that Gen 4 was the first, like, that was what was out whenever I was getting ready to buy my first light. I had the BioCube thing, and I had replaced the light a couple of times, that LED lamp thing, and then they stopped making that bulb for it, so I had to do something. And whenever I started looking, the Radeon was the one I liked. That's the one I bought. And I think that's what everybody should do. Like pick what you like.
Yeah.
If you have watched my video, well, I don't make videos anymore, but if you've watched the videos I've made over years, there was a time when I loved Kessel. Kessel was the be all end all, because I kept softies, and Kessels reminded me of the shimmer growing up in Jamaica at the beach. So my expectations, or not only that, but the companies I support have evolved over time. So who knows, maybe next year there will be another light manufacturer and I will like them for different reasons. So I'm not going to apologize for who I like, because I like it now. It's a snapshot in time. Like I said, my first ever light I bought was an AI Hydra, and I loved that thing until I found something better. And I loved that thing until I found
better
something better.
To you, though, right? Like,
but did you still love the original light? Did it still grow just as well as it did a week before you knew about the other one?
It was a nightmare. See, one of the things I loved about the Ecotech was because they had the AB plus, and it was good. Because I remember there is a long famous thread on Reef Central called the AI Hydra settings thread, And I remember for those of you on Reef Central, that was a thread where everyone was growing coral under a different setting, and it was maddening because somebody was like, "Hey, turn your reds up." I only run my red at 10%, and then there was somebody from Long Island who had a fabulous tank, and he's like, "Blues, I run my blues at 30% because I don't think we need them." So I went crazy trying to tune that Hydra for years. Yeah, sorry. No more ranting.
I know that the Ecotech's also doing the LED puck thing, right? Where you can just change the LEDs.
You can. So I was thinking hard.
Wait, is that just backwards compatible with the Gen 5s, or does it go further back?
No, because Gen 5 is the same form factor. So okay. I was debating, trying to rationalize if it's like, is it makes sense to upgrade for somebody? If you have a Gen 4 to a Gen 5 or 6, like it's a big upgrade in terms of spread and power evenness. If you have a Gen 5 to a Gen 6, it would be harder to justify that because the Gen 5 is still already a sweet light, right? So, but if you bought like the blue and you're like, buyers need more, so I should have bought the Pro, I want that crispiness, then, you know, that's a great excuse to do it. But then that versus just selling them, buying the other ones, I don't know. It's a toss-up for sure.
Also,
was it Tracy that said that her LEDs went out on one of the lights? Like, if you do have an issue with LEDs, like then you have a way to replace it.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing. And
wait. This is my favorite part about it. That there are people who are going to say, "I need the Gen 6 because they have to have the best." And you know, I'm a total technology person. I love gear, maybe not as much as but I'm obsessed with gear. So I get it, but landfills and not putting trash, and I know people are going to likely sell Gen 5s if they were to buy the Gen 6s. I love the idea of just being able to swap out the LEDs and not contribute to the pollution on the earth as badly.
That is a good point, because when you sent that in the group text and I told Greg that, we were kind of taken aback that we never even thought of that. That was not even in the marketing materials from Ecotech or anyone. Like I didn't even think of that. So
the
that
first
was
thing
a
my
good
head
call.
went to, I'm like, conservation. Yeah. Like, yeah, if we care about the ocean and the earth, which we all should if we're in this hobby, like it makes perfect sense to offer that as an option.
That is true. Another thing I thought about, because I have 4 Radion Gen 5 blues that were purchased different. If you bought a Gen 5 blue early on, it was $800. Like now a Radion is $950. So inflation or the pandemic or parts has made the price expensive. So that's also another thing to compare, because it's not a one-to-one replacement. You bought a Gen 5 at $800 a couple of years ago, and now a Gen 6 is $950. So you're talking $150 more per light. So Oh, Giovanni, is that TMG?
Yeah, Man. It is. Haven't seen him in ages.
What? So a Radion is like, it's more expensive. What do you call it? Inflation or the pandemic or parts or chips?
Yes,
800 then 2 years ago versus 950 now. That's a big jump.
Yeah.
So that's also another consideration to make when you're making that decision.
No, that's a very good point. Very, very good point.
I don't know what Sammy D. If we only had customer service for El Cheapo lights that break less frequency.
Yeah, but Cheapo doesn't support you. You basically throw it away and buy a new one.
Yeah.
I think he's saying that they don't break as frequently, so it's not as much of a problem. I didn't see any, and like I said, like I think lights is an emotional decision. It is. It could be emotional about the amount of money you're spending. It could be emotional about the looks. It could be emotional about wanting the best thing. There's a whole lot of stuff wrapped into that. And
it's personal.
Just put your tank outside and don't even buy a light. That's as cheap as you get. Use the sunshine. It's free.
It's personal. So when I was younger and I was IT and I had time, of course, before my kids were a certain age, of course I like to tinker. Like computers, I never wanted. At one point, I was an Apple snob. I was like, I want to be able to tinker and upgrade my. But as I got older, I don't
I used
want to
to do
spend
that.
time tinker. Yeah, like we have.
Hours jailbreaking and tweaking, and now
Yeah,
I'm like, yeah,
so
I don't care. That's what
yeah.
I need.
Now I don't jailbreak my phone anymore because jailbreak there was a 1 in 1,000 chance that it would crash at times. And now where I'm in my career in my life, I don't want my phone to crash when I need to ask my wife what's for dinner or some, I know that's a terrible example,
Hmm.
probably a little bit, but I'm at the point in my life now where that's not what I want to do. So maybe when I was younger, my decision would have been a little less, but I just want to have my lights and have them work, man. I don't want to have a bench and be flipping LEDs and be popping out LEDs. I just want to send it to somebody for them to fix it
Hmm.
and send it back to me. Like I don't want to tinker like that. I've done that in my life. I'm comfortable that I've passed that. So good luck to more power to you guys who want to tinker. That's not me.
Yeah, fair. Each their own. So
Yeah.
back to the crazy. 2 tanks down this weekend. Now, at least you have a temporary tank in the background to tie you over for now.
You also
Yes.
sent us a picture of like a mess.
Yeah, so what else are you holding out on us on?
Um.
And you said your wife was very mad at you and you didn't tell
Well,
us
yeah.
why.
Did you? I don't know if you. The picture was of my living room. I don't know, Dev. Can you show it?
I'm just seeing if I pull it up here.
Don't play this audio, but
No, I'm muting it.
yeah, that is my living room. Yep, that is my living room and all my livestock and me scrambling for days. Like, put it a little closer. All right. Yep.
What's up?
Yeah, that is my living room and me trying to save my livestock. That's the stand. That's those boxes and everything, Dev. That's all the stuff I took out the tank, and there's more boxes. You see the wires? Yeah, that's yeah.
Dang, eh?
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah, that's a lot of chaos.
Yeah.
My wife would kill me. Yeah, that's a tricky one too. Spouses in the middle of disaster. Now, did she help you, or would she like deal with it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because when it was time to aquascape the new one, I thought, oh, let me just throw some rocks in. And my wife, of course, bless her, it was 10 o'clock at night, and she said, let me do some aquascape because you're not just gonna. I have to look at it, so you're not just gonna throw some rocks in.
I want
So
to
she
meet
did
your
aquas.
wife so
Yeah,
badly.
that's
Can you
awesome.
bring her somewhere
Yeah, she'll be
during
around.
wrap?
Yeah. Yes,
That's
my wife did. Listen, I'm still alive, so obviously she didn't kill me. But trust me, I am going to pay for that. At some point, I am going to pay for that. But
Another trip to
yeah,
Cancun for her and her friends.
probably. Another thing I didn't talk about
I want to
is
be one of her friends.
anemones. My
Yes.
anemones. I'm down to so my anemones. I don't know if they're gonna make it. I ended up saving a few, and I
But
put them in my kid's tank.
don't you have
So
like a little anemone tank in your kids' room?
no, that was connected to the main tank, and it was
Oh.
right next to the main tank. Um, so I have some nems. I had a black widow, a Colorado sunburst, and my strain of nems that. So again, the story behind these nems, I got them from a friend. Got one from a friend who quit the hobby.
Mm-hmm.
It it ended up splitting. I gave some to Dave Lembo. If you remember Dave's nano tanks.
Yep.
I had a tank crash and all my nems died. And when Dave got sick right before he died, I ended up getting all his nems, which I had given him. So that was the type of thing where you pay it forward and then I got it back.
Mm-hmm.
So I really hope. I know I've given nems to a few people and I need to reach out, but I'm really hoping that that strain of nem doesn't die with me. I have a few that are not looking so good, but it's like, again, you have these stories, like you give it to someone and like I was talking to Roger from Tunzi yesterday. He had sent me a jawbreaker and I was like, hey, Roger, that jawbreaker is doing well. And I've given a bunch of people jawbreakers from it. So there is just a lot of things where you pay it forward and someone leave something with you, and then you can. The first time I gave Dave that anemone, my wife was like, "You're giving away anemones. Why?" But the day I
Good
brought
karma.
them back home when he died, like, of course she was happy. She was like, "We got Nems back," and
I thought
crazy.
you were saying she was happy he died. I was like, what?
No, and
Sorry.
you know, I'm also happy to say that I'm getting a little emotional, but the two clownfish I have,
Hmm.
two of the main fish that survived the entire thing are the clownfish I got from Dave back. So when he died again, I took his clownfish, and the two clownfish I have are from him.
Nice.
So at least those survived. Like I said, a lot of the stuff I have, there is a personal story behind it. It's not just stuff that you bought. And you're like, hey, I bought this. So yeah, really sad to be losing, lose some of that stuff. But yeah, Reef Keeper, hey, that Pectinia's holding on, buddy. I hope it does make it. He sent me a few frags. I cut it in two. One died, and I've had that for years, and it grew into a nice colony, and I gave people frags, but I really want to save it. I really do. I have a Blasto, like a beautiful Blasto that a coworker of mine just walking through Petco, and he bought it, and it went from a single polyp to like this big thing that I have now. And yeah, it's just, yeah.
So if you have a very good friend in reefing, it is very wise to trade corals and build up kind of like backups in a way. So
yeah,
good reefing karma.
Seed stuff with people. I feel kind of, not that I'm projecting on anyone, but for me, sometimes selling feels icky to me, but trading, absolutely.
If I know the person, I would hands down just trade me something. I don't care what. Just what do you have that's cool? Just trade me something. I do that because then you both get new corals. You know, you technically have a backup of it. It's a great way to go.
Yep.
So another good decision I made is that one of the friends that helped me move the tank a few months ago, I got possession of some really nice from Uni Coral, some really nice corals, mini colonies. And I thought to myself, I don't think I'm in any condition right now to hold. I don't know. I just had a feeling like you're not going to keep this sensitive SPS in the tank. So luckily for me, my friend locally was a 500-gallon tank. I gave them all to him. I said, dude, hold on to these. And that was a great decision because there are like some really nice, expensive SPS in his tank waiting for me. So, yeah, the entire thing that Dev just said about sharing, absolutely. One of the things when Kells was going to come to rep New York, I was going to give him some Pectinia frags. So hopefully they make it for him to get here and he can get some frags of it. So Jawbreakers, he was going to get some Jawbreakers. So again, I still hope it makes it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then that's a fair point. Sometimes people get salty when they give you a coral or give someone a coral and the person just sells it. Yeah, I would be a little bit because you give it to them as like a gift to like, you know, and they turn around and just profit off it. No more free corals for you. But if you're like they genuinely appreciate and you're helping them out, then I mean that's good reef for karma.
I mean, that was what really, I've said this a million times, y'all are probably annoyed with me saying it, but that's what really like got me into the hobby was someone sent me a bunch of frags of things that they had overgrowing and he didn't even let me pay for shipping and he just said pay it forward. But when you have colonies, give it to, don't sell it to people.
Yep. I agree. Good reef for karma goes a long way. But it's like down the road, and then someone has something cool, then you're like, oh, that's pretty sweet. They're like, oh, here you go. Here's a nice big chunk of it, right? Like it goes both ways. So it's good for the community.
If I have one takeaway from this, the one advice I would give per people is even though this was going to be only a few hour move, just have a backup. I know it's like the most cliche advice. It is the most not only in reefing, but in life. Have a backup plan is the most cliche advice anyone could ever give. Like, hey, I'm late for making dinner. Have a backup plan. Like for the most random, mundane thing in life, have a backup plan is the most cliche thing. But I would say, even if you're doing a tank move, just always think, hey, suppose something happens and you need to plumb or you need to just make, if you plan on putting your livestock in a tank for a few hours, just have equipment on hand or at least have a backup plan. Be like, hey man, have a friend that says, do you have a pump if I need to leave my livestock in a bucket overnight? Do you have an extra pump and heater that I can come get? So just it sounds like cliche again coming out of my mouth, but if that's one takeaway that I would say is I should have had more salt water on hand, Dev, as a backup, right? Probably should have had more heaters. Yes.
Yeah. For temporary tanks, what is the best bang for your buck that I found? Home Depot, they have those bins for like 15 or 20 bucks for those really big black bins with the red or yellow lids or whatever. Super cheap. Tons of volume of water. Like those things are great temporary tanks. I used some of those when I was moving tanks and doing stuff. Or if I bought a tank breakdown, I'd go buy a bunch of those bins just to move stuff around. So really good to have some of those for like backup tanks if you need it.
It makes me feel really lucky last weekend whenever I changed out my rock skate, because I was so scared I was going to drop it on the glass. Like, I didn't, but if I had, I didn't have any kind of backup whatsoever. I had one bin that I was going to put the rocks into, which would not have been enough to hold everything.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. I think if I'm the next time I am going to do a tank move like this, I'm going to be more prepared first, and I'm not going to have big colonies anyway. It's going to be frags. But if I have mini colonies, then it would be like leave it with someone or cut them into frags and start over, something like that. Because I wish I would have done that. I would have rather had frags and known that my corals went to someone else rather than.
Those sound like great bonus gifts for who's ever helping you move your tank.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to be moving the next tank, so
yeah,
I'd probably pay someone to take that risk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I can't find my phone because someone's been calling me Greg and knows I'm on a stream. But
not saying any names, Greg.
So then I had the Vortec controllers here. It was always on the right side.
Yeah, you said had.
I had about 60 holes in the wall over the last 8 years. I guess I've mounted and unmounted so much stuff. It took me like 2 hours to how you have those little cheap anchors into? Yeah. No, just to pull out the little plastic anchors. Just to pull the plastic with like needle nose pliers. I said to myself, like, holy crap, like, did you really have like I think I had, man, I can't believe how many 60 holes in the wall. So, between pulling the things out, putty in it, sand in it, painting, that was a lot of work.
Yep. Oh, that is crazy. I believe it though. You had a lot of stuff mounted there.
Yeah. Well, but that was just the latest stuff. It's been over time. Like, I remember one point I had like the full suite of stuff from Harry's with all those switches, and I took those down, and then I had a gyro controller mounted at one point over. I just think I've gone through. And by the way, it might sound like I'm proud of it. I'm actually really ashamed of myself. But yeah.
Yeah, live and learn.
Yeah. What was the weirdest thing from behind my tank? What was the weirdest thing I found behind there?
Other than your bag of magnets?
No.
Both me and Deb went to the same thing.
I'm just picturing you walking with your giant bag of magnets past like a dumpster down some alley and just like sucks you towards it.
Oh, No, you actually think I'm kidding. about the
No.
bag with the cables.
No, we 100% believe you. There is
Okay.
no questioning. We know how much junk you have.
Um,
You got junk in the trunk,
yeah.
aka suitcase.
Um, yeah. There were syringes. There were algae scrapers. There were, of course, fish. As you know, they jump and they ended up crispy behind there. There were Neros. There was an MP40 wet side. There were power cables that I don't know what they power. There were optical sensors. There was an FMM module, Dev. There was a WXM module. So maybe I could sell that for a few bucks.
Except
This
for
is-
that's obsolete now,
This was
right?
all behind your tank.
I think when anything fell, I just didn't, the Red Sea, you just couldn't take it out. So I just left it there. Well, you
I
couldn't take
left
it out.
enough room between my wall so that I could reach my entire arm back there and get something in case it fell.
Wise.
And I actually
Yeah.
suggested someone recently, I don't remember who it was, Josh O, maybe, Lakeside Reefer, someone with a blue profile picture, put a so I know everybody by the profile picture, put a tank in their office, and it was really close to the wall. I was like, you might want more of a gap there in case anything falls. And he was like, no, all my wires fit. And then he said, like, 20 minutes later, he was cleaning something and it fell and he couldn't reach it. I was like,
Told you.
Yep.
Ooh, the best thing that was behind the tank, a Milwaukee digital refractometer.
Solid.
I don't even remember.
How
I
did
thought I
all this
sold
fit
that
back
thing.
there?
I don't know.
it sounds like there must have been enough room that you could have reached it had you tried.
It was in the corner. So
Uh-huh.
so the Red Sea has the dry side, which is straight through, but the wet side, it was in the corner, so there was no.
Another aquarium behind his aquarium. The
That's
weirdest
true.
thing I found was an aquarium that I forgot I had.
Yeah, one of those little 1 gallon ones.
Yeah, no,
Thank you, Melanie.
no.
There's no nanos back there.
Mm,
I only leave enough to fit the dry side of the power heads on there. That's my
Yeah.
gap spacing. That plus a smidge more, so I can actually like slide it out if I need to.
yeah.
Yep.
I just to talk about something bad that happened to me. I don't have anything like major bad that ever happened to any of my tanks. I don't think, not this bad anyways. But I've had a lot of really, really close calls. Like whenever the reason why my current tank got corals in it so quickly was because when they were moving the old tank, the stand completely busted.
Dang.
Fell apart, and luckily there were 5 guys there, and they grabbed the
What?
top of the stand. It was
It,
on
like,
the
Self imploded on itself?
yeah, the whole stand like the left side like completely collapsed.
Were you moving it or just happened?
They were so the moving people, the LFS that was moving it, were moving it,
Mhm.
right? And they had put it on sliders, and they were sliding it / moving it. It's on a hardwood floor. It shouldn't have been a problem. Obviously, it was going to eventually be a problem. And they had drained it most of the way down. Like, it was enough for the fish still. And the whole point, like, my whole goal was to fill it back up. That was going to stay while the old tank was cycling. And literally, like, it was a tank stand I made. So the top was butcher block.
Mhm.
And so the 5 guys grabbed the butcher block as the tank, like, starts sliding off, right? And one of the guys runs out to the truck, and all the 4 guys left are like, hurry, because it's heavy. And he goes and grabs 2x4s and drills to it, but of course it's not level, so the tank was like sitting like this and I was just like, it's going to fall. So I ended up moving stuff earlier because I was trying to avoid that, but there was no backup plan if that didn't work. Like, and if they hadn't caught it, the whole tank and all the inhabitants
Would have been down.
shattered on the, yeah.
Oof.
I thought when you said 5 guys, I thought you were talking about the burger joint, but I got it.
No, like 5 men were
Oh, okay.
were moving it.
Holding this
I'm
tank
just-
/ stand.
The Hydros has only been out for about 2 years, right?
Sounds about right.
Yeah. The confusing thing was I had so much hydros junk that was on my tank that wasn't even plugged in. Like, I don't know what some of this stuff is, or like what I don't like. I know what this is. I didn't even know I had it. I don't know what this thing is. I know it's a hydros
Oh,
thingy, but
oh yeah, I don't know. Pigtail or something.
yeah, yeah, I don't know. So that was. I, I'm gonna do better. I'm gonna be better. Next round, I am gonna be better.
Okay. Dang,
Oh,
Phil. In 2003, we had a huge earthquake. The tank almost came off the stand. My son was able to push it back while the earth was rocking. Could have been a disaster. Wow.
how
That is
did the stand
crazy.
sub? How did the stand survive that?
And how did your kid push it back? That is amazing. Props
How
to
wait, the
him, but
stand was
also
rocking.
sketchy.
How did you stabilize the stand when it was? I would think it was so stressed that it would have. Wow.
Dang. I mean, wow, that's impressive. And I'm impressed the tank didn't like, if it's enough to like shake it off, that it was held together just fine. That's crazy.
That is
Oh,
crazy.
Yep.
James Scott said that's the wave engine adapter. Oh, so the gyre that you have, Brandy. I guess I had a wave engine adapter for it and didn't.
What's a
Oh,
wave engine adapter?
so I guess to connect a gyre to a wave engine, you need a
Oh,
connector. So not see, we figuring it out. I know what that is now.
Well, label it and throw it in your suitcase of cables.
this is why I don't buy equipment. I first ask if O has one laying around, and anytime I've asked, he said, "Yeah, actually, I do."
What do you need?
And then every time I get new equipment, I was one of the first ones to claim the old equipment. I'm like, "Why?" And he's like, "I don't know." I'm like, "You have all."
O's oddities. One
Yeah.
of aquarium. Got one of everything. What do you got? What do you need?
I'm gonna stop. I am going to stop. I
Why?
am gonna do better.
Okay. What are you gonna do better?
I am not going to. I'm gonna keep the tank simple. It's gonna be a. Can't even say it with a straight face.
Simple.
It's gonna be a super simple reef.
That's like when David says that his tank is simple. Farmed frags. He always
Oh, he
talks
said
about.
that.
He used to tell me all. He still says it all the time that he has a simple, like it's simple, guys, simple. And he used to tell me only worry about salinity and temp. Oh, and I thought that's what he was doing with this tank. And he's like plays mad scientist. He's like, no, it's simple. It's only like 15 things I add a day. And I'm like,
David has like lights pointing from the front everywhere. What is he talking about?
that's what I feel like. But that's what I'm saying. You're saying you're gonna have a super simple tank.
And
It's
that means
like
everything
David
but
saying,
ozone.
yeah, yeah.
It's
There's nothing.
relative.
I don't think there's going to be anything about it that will be simple.
I
It's
feel like you're
relative.
making fun of me, but I
I'm not
can't
making
detect
fun of
why
you.
you're making fun of
I
me
just
or
think the
how.
definitions
We're
of simple are different.
yeah, simple's relative.
Like, have y'all watched? Sorry to bring this up, but have y'all watched the Amber Heard trials at all?
A little bit.
So she apparently thinks that pledging a donation is the same thing as actually donating, and she said that on the stand. And they were like, "Well, no, have you actually paid?" And she's like, "Well, I've pledged, and that's the same thing." It's like, has it come out of your account? And she's like, "No, but it's been pledged." I feel like that's kind of where you're at with this simple. I love you, O, and I love that you're a tech and a gear nerd and a gearhead, and I hope you stay that way. Is what I'm saying.
Your face, you're just
Thanks.
like, I don't know if I approve of this
Thanks.
message, but I'm listening.
Thanks.
I'm trying to figure out how I can be offended by this.
Yeah. Thanks, I think.
I'm saying just own who you are.
Oh, I have owned it. That I've had in the
You will
last
never
couple
own a
years.
simple reef tank. Just accept it.
Yes.
You
I
will.
think, yeah, I listen, I'm not apologetic about it anymore. If you want to ask somebody how to grow like SPS colonies, I am not your guy. But if you want to ask me what equipment to use based on technical details or something, then I'm your guy.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I think that there's not a single person I know who knows more about equipment than you.
Yeah. I wouldn't, yeah,
That's a good thing.
I wouldn't, that's what got me into it. I left one tech hobby to go into a next one. Yeah, I'm not gonna apologize. I've stopped trying to apologize for it. It just is what it is.
No, I think you should be proud of it.
But
Like
I'm curious,
that's a big
who are you
success.
apologizing to and over what?
I know.
Well, no, we like to say the internet because the internet is everyone and no one. But
Hmm.
it's, like, I don't know. There was a time when, I don't know. It's hard to explain. But I think as you get older, you just become more comfortable in your skin. I'm like, this is the part of the hobby I enjoy. And
It's fun.
you're people like, you don't need all of that. No, you
Of
don't
course I
need
don't,
it,
but it's
but
fun.
I want it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You also don't need a tank to begin with, but you want it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
truth. I am constantly amazed how I somehow manage to keep fitting stuff into the water box stand. It baffles me every time I add a new piece of gear.
That is true.
Yeah.
I am surprised how much stuff I took out. I didn't realize so much tubing, RODI cables. I don't know what half this stuff plugs into. Like, it's gonna be a pain to figure out what plugs in.
I could see how potentially like your goal could be when you stop using something, take it off the tank. Like
So
that might be
when
what you mean by simple.
when I stopped using, at one point I'd reorganized all the equipment on the Red Sea and had mounted everything. But then I realized that the minute you you get a new piece of equipment that you mount it, that all goes down the drain. Because I had radions, and then I was like, ooh, I want to try the aquatic life thingy. And then I tried the aquatic life thingy, and I'm like, ooh, aquatic life thingy. Like, let me go to the T5 hang-ons, the thing that hangs on to the side of a radion. Like, ooh, let me try that. So that was taking that down, putting some. So by the time you swap all of that, like that neatly run cable that was mounted, like that went out the drain already.
Yeah.
Yep. It's true. Well, if you never change it, it works. But if you change stuff or you have to do it and maintain it, you got to kind of consider the wires and all that part of it. Who was the other day? Actually, he's in the chat. But he was showing his power bar off, and every single outlet had a little label maker of what it was for. I was like, that would make life easier when you're fixing or changing it later.
My husband did that for me.
Yep.
When he went and got the label maker out of his toolbox, and not only did he label the outlet, he labeled the actual cord, so that way when I inevitably unplug it, multiple things, I know what the plug was. And also so the things that go from the wet side to the dry side of the Red Sea, in that section, it's labeled there also. So that way I know which one of the cords is going to what, so I know which one to pull on. My husband is incredibly good at wire management.
Nice.
Thank you, JCS Reefing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Salty science.
Seriously, salty science.
When was the last time you were in a Petco, Brandy or Devin? Because they have a bunch of they have rimless tanks now. Remember last year there were conversations about making the hobby cheaper? Like, Aquarium has rimless nano. They have
Really? The rimless ones now.
They have 40 cubes that are rimless. Aquarium has rimless tanks. Rimless 10, 20-gallon tanks. They have tanks in some different shapes. It is really cool. The 60 breeder now, which I think makes a great frag tank, because the 40 breeder is like a good tank to a lot of people. This is the same dimension except a foot longer. So I think Petco. Like there were a lot of talk about, hey, how can we make the hobby cheaper? Petco. Nice. It has some good stuff.
Appreciated a nice rimless tank. Yeah, the breaker is smart. So Than was saying he labels every outlet to which breaker it goes to. I have a little running notepad in my phone, which I say, okay, this breaker does this, 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 and this as I figure it out over time. I just keep adding to it.
That's
I feel like that's Than. The few times I've met Than, I would expect that from him. Yes, he seems that organized. Me, not so much.
Yeah.
Well, it's a facility for that, right? Like, I want to just add a breaker that's for my tank by itself, like, and
I don't do that, Brandy, for a few reasons. If that thing trips, I don't want the tank to die. So I actually have it
That's
on
why
two
you have it
different
on two
breakers.
separate breakers.
Yes.
But I don't even
Yes.
have I don't have that option right now because where my tank is, everything there is one breaker. So we actually, because of all the audio equipment in here, we do need to add another breaker box. And so that's something I want to do is add a breaker for the tank as like a backup. So there's a second breaker for things to be on.
So my
Yeah.
return pump, the middle light, and a couple of the power heads were on a separate breaker. So if anything and one breaker tripped, at least there is flow. So no matter which one tripped, there was some flow,
Yeah, that's what I want to do.
you know.
Hmm. It's wise.
I got some new corals today.
What'd you get?
Ooh,
What'd you get?
from who?
What'd you get?
I was actually texting Than because I was like, how do I take care of this? I got a sun coral.
Nice.
I know. It's got
Feed it
like,
lots.
huh?
Feed it lots.
Yep, that's what Than was saying. That was actually like, I was like, Tidal Gardens sun coral. Just making sure like I knew all the things and reminding myself. I'm really excited. It's got like 15, 20 heads on it. It's big.
Ooh,
Yeah,
I'm
I didn't
just
realize it was
Googling
that
Tidal Garden Sun Coral. Ooh, I'm going to add it to cart, Tan. Add it to cart.
big. And I got a Cinerina.
Ooh,
It's all
Nice.
fluffy.
What color?
Last time I tried,
What color?
It's red with like some like light purple and like lavender streaks in it.
Cool. Nice.
Last time I tried a Cinerina, I don't even know if I should tell the story. It was at Wrap Orlando. I bought it from a friend who was very hungover the next day, and he was being silly, and he wrapped it in the plastic really, really hard. I was like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "It's supposed to be like this." And then whenever I told him he did that later, he was like, "No, I didn't." I was like, "You did." And when I got it home, it was like the skeleton was like all broken, and it was a little bit too rough. So I was nervous to try him again because part of me was like, did I do something wrong? And it's already like big and fluffy, and I put it in earlier today, which is really exciting.
Nice.
And I want so in a Fungia.
What'd you get for Fungia? Like a plate or just like a regular mushroom? What'd you get?
It's a plate. It's an orange plate.
Nice.
I had a green one ages ago that had started from like this big with like the pink mouth. And here's another. It was a tank disaster. My ATO went crazy, and it was one of the things that I lost with the salinity dropping. That flooded my house.
Ooh, do tell.
And we had the AC guy come like months later, and he's like, "Do you know that one of your air ducts is full of water?" I was like, "No." From
Dang.
the ATO months later, I'm like, "Crap." Now my husband's gonna find out.
That's been there a while.
I got into it. Huh?
Strange.
But yeah, I got them from LAX Aquarium though.
ooh. Fathead
Nice.
dendros are expensive. Wow.
I got
This is my first non-photosynthetic coral, so I'm really excited.
sun corals. You just need to feed them a lot. That's the biggest thing.
And to a dozen to 2 dozen times a day.
Well, maybe not that much, but I would try and feed it, if not daily, every couple of days. So one of my air bunks are full of chipmunks.
Oh, daily? So you're just saying daily? Dan told me a dozen times.
Maybe not. Sorry, my dog's all hooked up. I would for sure feed it a few times a week, though. They definitely need to be fed a fair chunk to be happy. And if you don't feed them and they like close up, then they're really hard to get back open again. But if you feed them and keep them happy and open, then they're a lot easier to take care of.
They what I was actually looking at after Than told me to feed them a dozen times was a fridge. I think I might buy a fridge to put next to the tank.
Mini fridge? Mini fridge? The doser?
Yeah. And and just like set it up for dosing stuff. And like I travel a lot anyways, and the only thing right now that I need someone to come over and do is feed. And if I do that, like I don't even need someone to come over and feed. Like if someone comes over, I can just be like, look and make sure like nothing smells bad and that like everything is on and like and it which just makes it be less whatever. And I have a camera on the tank so I could see if there was a problem.
I know
Nice.
someone that had a setup like that where they had a little fridge. I think they drilled it, and what they did is they had a dosing pump where the dosing pump would dose, and then when it was finished, it would reverse and pump whatever food was in the line back in the tank, clean it. But of course, he had
So
to replace the tubing pretty frequently because it got gummed up pretty frequently.
so this is what I'm planning on doing after doing a bunch of research. So I'm going to have a line for mysis, a line for aminos, a line for um, Fido, and then one that goes to the tank. And what I'm going to have it do is like dose each one and then like dose from the tank. Like, so it's just going to be a loop basically. Dose from the sump through the line for 30 minutes to make sure it gets completely flushed. And yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
And they had them like together with teas. Like this person who did this
You,
had them
if,
together with teas.
if you used like a T and 2 pinch valves, you could probably do that to fully
Yeah.
flush it out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my, and probably put check valves maybe potentially. I don't know.
Nah,
like,
you don't need that. Pinch
think
valves
so.
will do it. I would
Pinch valves.
use a Y in 2 pinch valves, so you could just alternate which one's open. So you have the food open when you're dosing. The other times you could do it just to your sump feed to do it. I was like mapping this out in my head how I'd build it as you're describing it. I think that would work.
I have not, James, I have not done it yet. James, not Jimmy. I was doing research today, literally on Amazon. I think I was sending fan screenshots. I'm like, I'm gonna get this fridge. And then that way I have everything's automated. Like literally everything for the tank will be automated then.
I love automating stuff. It's fun. It's like, I know we were joking earlier about all the tech and stuff, but honestly, like automating and like building all these things is like a hobby in itself for me. I love that part of it.
Yeah. Well, like this is something I write about. It's like the hobby isn't just a science hobby. It's a STEM hobby: science, technology, engineering, and math. And like the building part is the engineering part, and it really hits all the things.
And a bit of plumber skills thrown in.
Yeah, that's part of like the and engineering and technology. Like, it's low tech, but plumbing is still technology.
No, exactly.
I remember I am not a handy person at all. Not at all. And my fridge, I got a new fridge. And I was going to pay a plumber. I think it was a couple $100 to hook up the ice maker. And when the fridge got delivered and I saw the ice maker kit, I was like, "Ooh, this is 1/4-inch RODI push connect tubing." So of course we canceled that appointment, and I was able to tap the cold water line and push connect the blue RODI tubing into the correct spots. And I was like, done.
2 minutes, $200 richer.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like so many things. I find many things are really not that hard if you just, go through to figure out the process. And that's, if you like creating and building things, it just teaches you new things by learning that process, and then it just expands the creativity. So I think it's good. The more you can do, the better.
So John Green, does anyone use mangroves as a form of filtration? I pulled that question out because the sump I have, so imagine the sump for this tank, because the tank is 30 inches deep, the sump takes up the entire length and width of the tank, but it has a separate, almost like a 20-gallon long tank. And my plan was to put mangroves there and put mangroves and maybe some cardinal fish, fish that live within mangroves. This was in a certain area of the sump. So I was thinking it'd be cool just to have mangroves there and just, I don't know. I thought that was cool.
I have a question.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never had a mangrove before, but just talking to Julian, Julian says mangroves grow much better in fresh water than salt water.
They do.
Which makes me wonder, and in my mind, they grow slow. I don't know if that's true or not. So if they're growing slow, how much nutrients are they taking up?
Okay. So on the average tank that someone throws a couple mangroves in their sump, it does very little. As it gets to be a big tree, it's obviously going to do a lot more, but it's a slow thing. So in order to have like actual solid uptake, you need a lot of mangroves or big mangroves. So majority of people do it as more just for fun than legit export.
Okay. So
Just throwing that out
my
there.
thought process was correct.
Yeah, like I remember in Louisiana, I remember one store they had like this massive lagoony one, but they had a mangrove that was almost to the roof. It was like a massive tree. Like that was probably sucking out stuff. But the odd
Yeah.
little pod with a couple branches probably is doing very minimal. So it's more for fun, I think, a lot of it.
Yep. It's
Unless
like Cheeto. When you get a ball, a little handful of Cheeto, that's doing nothing. But when it's grown into,
But it multiplies quickly.
yes, mangrove. You're right. Mangroves don't. I like mangroves for the
I
cool
was just,
factor.
yeah, they're
because
just
it
cool.
said as a form of filtration. Like, I didn't know that it was, I thought it was just more fun than,
Yeah.
I do it because it's fun and cool. I've seen people set up some really cool tanks. Yeah, I had a Callurpa refugium once with, was it Feather Callurpa? And that was cool. Because it
Yeah,
almost looked like, a mat of trees. Yeah, it was really cool.
I saw some dragon's breath this weekend
that's
that
pretty.
looked like they were like glitter.
Yeah.
Like the glitter ganies, you know? I'd never seen it look like glitter on it, the way that the speckles were. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, I've never seen it grow like that either. Maybe everybody else has, and maybe he was just like thinking I didn't know what I was doing, which I don't. So he would have been right. And was hoping he could be like, this is the glitter dragon's breath, and therefore it's $500 when it's really just normal. But
Yeah, the whole name game's another interesting thing in this hobby. But
yeah, worldwide corals, mangroves that's completely
theirs is
different.
awesome. Theirs
Yeah,
is,
that's a different.
Animal.
Yeah.
yes, that is a cool tank
Unless
though.
yours is that big, John. Maybe if you got a mangrove that's
A tree already, you'll get some
yeah.
solid output.
Oh.
Yeah, but basically it needs to be big, or you need to have a ton of them for it to be like useful
got
in terms of
5.
export.
Okay.
Yeah. Reef Pie. I've never tried Reef Pie. I have built my own controller using TMG. I think you were building one back then. I built an original one using an Arduino, and it was actually some open source code I found to automate a sprinkler system, which I modified into my own thing for that to like schedule all my outlets and do the different things and added auto feeders and stuff. But then I just decided to get real controllers because it was easier.
I had a Vertex, the latest version of the Vertex Cerebra, and I did ended up giving it to Reef Spy to see if he can maybe get Reef Pie running on it. I don't know. I need to hit him up to see whatever happened with that. But that Vertex controller, the second version, right before he went out of business, that was some top-notch hardware, though. The software was really suspect, but it was the hardware. Yeah, it was the software. The Android software was terrible.
So,
but
so if we're doing a DIY controller, here's my thoughts. If you have a lot of time to kill, by all means. Otherwise,
or if you like coding.
Yeah, so if you just want to like automate outlets, you can buy smart power bars that you can schedule so cheap now, right? To turn stuff on and off. You can buy single plugs, you can buy power strips for like $40-$50 to automate on and off. If you want to add like some float switches or some sensor inputs to control that, then that's kind of where DIY makes sense. If you don't want to buy a full-blown controller, is adding actions based off the inputs. Now, if you want to add in probes, this is the part where I think it's not worth it, because you can have pH probes and RP probes and salinity probes and all these other things. But by the time you buy, like, at least this could be changed. This was like 5-6 years ago when I was looking at this, but like to buy like the little Atlas Scientific little pH stamps, little circuit boards converted, and by the time you bought all that stuff, you're basically at the price of just buying a controller in the first place. So if it's just for like float valves and some stuff to control some switches, then it makes sense. But if you're trying to do pH and all that other stuff through it, then to me it's a little more questionable if it's worth it, because the price of all that stuff adds up.
Isn't not it's different for everyone, but to me, one of the primary reasons of a controller is to save your tank in an emergency. And I think, to me, that's a little bit of an oxymoron. When you're DIYing something, but then you need it to be reliable to potentially save your tank. So I can never reconcile that. I love the whole cool factor though. Love it. Like I said, maybe when I was younger, I'd be into that. But right now, I want to save my house. I don't want to flood my neighbor anymore. So,
Been there, done that.
I looked at it when I first started the hobby. I have the ability to code. I've done some cool stuff with coding actually, with like predicting like different species when they'll be out, like different reptile species when they'll be out for research purposes. But I was looking at it, and whenever I got in the hobby was when controllers literally were on off switches.
Yeah.
And there was the big black round thing that they were talking about, that was going to do all these tests. It had a disc that went in it.
Oh, the fish bit or something like that.
The Mind
Street.
Ah, that one.
And so to me, I was like, why would I? This is what kept me from buying a controller to begin with. But I was looking at the Reef Pi. Otherwise, I probably would have started with an Apex from day one on my little bio cube, because I like gear.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. At the time when I built my DIY one, and to buy the little Atlas pH and ORP and salinity stamps was the same price as just buying a used Apex. So I just bought the used Apex. So I'm like, well, this will save me endless hours. So that's what I ended up doing.
Yeah.
That was the tipping point for me.
There was one called the Fish Bit that did a GoFundMe that was supposed to be the thing, tell you when you needed to do a water change. And I think it just fizzled out. At the end, it ended up being like a power strip controller and, nothing temperature control. Yeah, it just didn't do anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
there's been a bunch
from the beginning, but I was like, why would I buy that when I can buy this that tests all the parameters? And of course, we all know where that went.
Yeah, well, at least they made a product and then just didn't have the money to continue.
It's so cool. I so hope someone picks that up and does something with it.
Yeah. Was that the one that was supposed to be like intelligent and give you advice on your tank and stuff like that?
Not that one. That was oh no, that's a whole different.
It tested 10 different parameters.
Though. Oh, you're talking about the Mindstream, the spinny disc one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The one you're talking about, Dev, the one that was promoted by a bunch of folks.
Oh, that was like the Felix Smart or something like that. That one, maybe.
Oh my god, that was terrible.
How long ago did that come out?
I don't think it did come out. It was supposed to come out.
It did come out. It was terrible. It was basically a Senai plugged into a Raspberry Pi, and you could control outlets. But of course, when you're using a Senai to monitor pH, you got to pay $10 a month for each slide, which is not something they tell you.
Mm-hmm.
What was it called again, Dev?
Felix Smart, I believe.
Yeah. Oh, there's a Felix Pro. Oh, it has a camera.
Yeah, it had a camera. I feel like it was supposed to give you like recommendations. It's been ages since I looked at it, but yeah.
Yeah, no.
Well, that was probably before I got into the hobby.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't?
No, that was a couple years ago. They reached out to me at one point, and then I never heard back from them again.
Oh yeah, there were a bunch of people promoting it.
What's the year?
Like 2 years ago.
2 or 3 years ago.
They're still selling the stuff now. You can buy a Felix now. You can get a Felix with a camera for $579. You can get a Felix Pro Plus that monitors pH, salinity, ORP, nitrate, ammonia, temperature, water level, PAR, and a camera for $1,200.
Dun.
That's not too bad.
I feel like that was aimed more at freshwater tanks than reef tanks.
Then
for
why
some
did
reason.
it have a salinity probe for $500?
Well, maybe it did both. I don't know. I just recall it being more freshwater focused when I looked at it.
A lot of these controllers, like if you start looking into the actual company, like it blows my mind how many started off as like being pool controllers.
Yeah.
And still have pool divisions and ponds and so it's
I mean, it's testing water at the end of the day, right? one source of water versus another.
Yeah, fishery management, stuff like that. So
Interesting.
Yep.
Ponds, do we think ponds are a bigger market than reef tanks?
Probably.
Okay, so then there you go.
Dang, Tracy.
Thanks, Tracy.
Like and subscribe. Dang, thank you very much, buddy. Like and subscribe. And the bell, apparently, because that's like the new subscribe button on top of it. So every other YouTuber tells me, so I should probably repeat it once in a while.
Yeah.
Which I never do.
Hit the bell so you get notified when a stream comes out.
Apparently,
how to monitor CO2 with your aquarium. Ooh.
Yep, JCS was just asking about that. So that is actually really cool. It is, I mean, it's kind of overkill, but the sensor itself, the Siemens one, is overly priced normally. So buy it off eBay because it was less than $100. Where anywhere else it was much more expensive. So if you want to build it, buy it from eBay for the sensor. And the trickier part is getting the ASM module. I had to contact a Neptune directly to get one because rarely anywhere sells just the module without buying the PMK, the power monitoring kit. So yeah, basically those are the two things you need. Aside from that, it's pretty easy. But it's cool because like even I had, you know, a couple people over the other night. I could just see my CO2 levels like whoop, almost doubled, and even like, oh, my pH is way lower that day. Like it's really cool to see the correlations of CO2 and pH. So
I might have to call it quits.
Yeah.
My husband is in Portland, and so I'm the only parent on duty, and it's bedtime, and I can hear him still listening to his iPad, so he has not put himself to bed.
Ooh.
When do kids start putting themselves to bed?
My kids, they're supposed to be in bed at 9, and my son is in the kitchen now. So.
How old's your son?
13.
Oh, so my 8-year-old's not going to do that.
You got a little while. All right, guys. I guess. Yes.
Y'all can keep going.
No, I can be here. I got 10, 15 more minutes.
I got about 5 more minutes, and I think I got my parents dropping off something pretty quick. Aren't koi the most expensive?
Go, and I will stay.
Fair.
Right.
Koi. Bye, Randy. So koi can definitely be crazy. There was a pond place like a couple blocks away from where I live, and I remember they had not $1 million, but they had like 20,000, like some crazy koi that had been in, like massive ones that have been in there for ages and ages and ages. I don't know how crazy it gets, but I know I was like in shock. I don't remember the numbers were, but I was in shock of like how, one, expensive, and two, how old they actually were, which is kind of crazy.
Wow.
Yep, koi fish can be crazy.
Interesting.
I
know. Are you setting up a pond?
No, I don't know. Maybe one day. I built a waterfall in my backyard, which but it's pondless, mainly because I didn't want to worry about mosquitoes. So I built like a cavity underneath, and then I put just like some meshy stuff and rocks underneath, so when it turns off, the water all disappears. And I did that mainly to not have mosquitoes. So are the pipes and stuff are going to freeze during the winter there? No, because when it's off, the water flows back down, and then the pump in the pipe is buried like 3 or 4 feet down, so it's fine. I haven't taken the pump out in many years, and it still works every year, so it's working. It is a big AC pump that I bought off eBay many moons ago, and it's still going strong.
Okay. I was going to say, is it what's the expensive pump we have in the hobby? Is it a Biz? I was going to say it is a Biz.
Nope, not that. It is was like $180, I think, at the time for like some big beefy pump, but
it's
still
like
going strong.
Mag pump never goes bad, so
basically, yeah, it just works. I'll take it.
True.
Still in Brooklyn. All right.
Still in Brooklyn. So you're coming to New York, right, Dev?
That's the one next month. No, it's not happening, buddy. This year is a write-off now for trips. Next year I'll start coming again.
All right.
Little frags in the making, buddy.
Wait, hold on a second. Oh, I have a company travel trip, and
Where
I
you
didn't
coming?
realize. Ooh, I gotta see when June 25 to 26. Ooh, let me see if it corresponds with my work trip.
That'd be convenient.
Oh
Tidal
no,
Gardens.
nope. It's a week before. Ooh,
Dan, my
saved.
favorite pump up biz. I've never used an Abiz, but they're supposed to be amazing. You ever using a biz? You got any? Did you find anything behind your tank?
Um, no, but I would love to. I would. No, I have a red dragon, and maybe send them. Oh, I didn't even remember I had one until you just asked me about a biz. Ooh, I have a red dragon, so maybe
Hmm.
now is the perfect time to set up that red dragon.
There you go. Give it a test. Let me know how it
Yeah.
is.
Yep. So JCS, thank you. Yeah, I just need to figure out a tank. Get one built, and then go from there. So I have a few ideas of tank builders, but that's what I need. I need to get one built.
Well, despite all the crazy, I'm happy you didn't jump off the reef ledge and you're sticking with it.
I'm glad to. I'm glad I stayed. Once I decided, once yes, I'm glad I stayed, but I came very close. I was very close.
Yeah. I think that's what makes us solid like reefers is persisting through it. I mean, so many people shut down tanks over aptasia or algae or something else, but being able to just like push through it and keep going and come back stronger, I think goes a long way. So you got this, buddy.
That is true. I appreciate it. I appreciate the kind words. For everyone who sent me and everyone, I probably heard my phone texting. So everyone who sent me words of encouragement, I appreciate it. And yes, there was some cussing. There was some pissed. I was mad. I was angry. I was frustrated. Um, yeah, I
Yep.
was. But I'm not gonna say I'm over it. But I've also been inundated for the people who know with stories with people who made other mistakes, and they're like, "I'm back," and you would never know. So, and people also encourage me to share and let people know. If you can save someone from doing the same thing, then absolutely go ahead. And I hope I know we went off track like we usually do, but I hope we at least told someone to be prepared, which again is the most cliche advice you could give someone, but just be prepared, like in case your tank move doesn't go as planned.
It's true. And you know what though? Like honestly, like I feel like sharing the chaos and like the stuff that goes wrong is a good way to learn, right? So at least if you could help someone else not make the mistake or talk it out and think of better ways of doing it in the future, I mean it helps everybody. So I think it is important, right? Like there's ups and downs for everybody, for everything, right? It's not all sweet sugar coated. I mean, it's part of life. It's the way things roll sometimes.
That is.
Yep.
I on the way home with the 60 breeder, I was my cab driver, my Uber driver was talking to me, and while he didn't know that, he just sensed that I was tense. And he said, "Man, don't worry about whatever's going on. Just don't worry about it." He's like, a few years from now, he's like, when you're going through something, it seems like the worst thing in the world. But
Mm-hmm.
he's like, a few years from now, you're probably going to look back at it and say, "Man, you remember that time?" And time heals all wounds. And again, I don't want to make it sound like my livestock is replaceable, but um, I'm going to be back better,
Yeah, you will.
better.
Yes, yes, you will. I like it. Uh, on the industry side, companies do not talk about mistakes and problems. It's true. I don't know. I share everything. I don't care. It is what it is, right? It's the only way you're gonna learn is by going through it, sharing.
Fan is right. The first time I met Fan was in Chicago. And I was telling Fan, "Hey, I was just talking to a vendor and they said we don't have pests." Fan was like, "They're lying.
Lies.
If anyone tells you that they don't have pests, then believe me, they have pests. They're just lying to you."
Yep.
And I remember he said it with such conviction that I was like, "For real, Fan?" He said,
Truth.
"Yes. You can never get," he said, "just like reefers can't ever get rid of pests 100%. He's like, the same thing with no matter how much you quarantine, something's going to slip through." And that made me feel a lot better, knowing that, hey, there's something. Just don't nuke just have a plan to deal with it. Don't nuke like you
Mm-hmm.
said earlier, like, hey, people shut down and nuke tanks because of aptasia.
Yep. So like I have I only know of one. There's one big monster aptasia hiding in the spot that's hard to get to, but I also have a copper band in there. If there's any other little ones that pop up, he probably eats them, right? But if I ever didn't have him, I'm sure an aptasia problem is possible, right? So, I mean, everyone has stuff. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. It just could be something in your tank is taking care of it for you.
True.
Truth.
Yep. I appreciate you having me on, Dev.
Anytime, buddy. Thanks for sharing your craziness of the last week or so, weekend. But you'll be back stronger, buddy. Appreciate it. And yeah, right. Thank you everybody who joined today. Thank you guys for the super chats. Oh, we'll have to work on something afterwards for helping out the tank fund. Yep. All right, guys. So everyone that joined, much appreciated. Thanks for hanging out. Thank you guys as always, and we will catch you guys in next week's stream.